Hi, no matter how hard I try, you keep pushing me aside and I can't break through. Lunar Lux. So I've had this idea for this really dumb, like non-serious video, so hopefully no one takes this out of context and actually makes some sort of serious situation out of something that's not worth taking seriously. But since my previous video I had about taking information from my solo queue games, one of the things that I recorded, and actually I'm working on a new video sometime in the future for that similar idea, but with more data, more info, more entries. Um, One of the categories was how often do I see survivors DC in my matches, or how many people DC in my matches, uh, killers and survivors included. So I thought it'd be kind of fun to go through all the killers in DBD and tier list them based on how often I think or I feel survivors DC against them. This isn't scientifically accurate by any means, so hopefully no one will actually take offense to this. But here we go. So I think, well, obviously, I think we're going to start with the first killers, and then we're going to work our way down to the most recent killers. So first on the list, obviously, is going to be Trapper, the flagship killer of DBD. I should probably figure out what I mean by S tier all the way down to F tier, but I don't think I'm really going to utilize F tier since survivors not DCing against killers is not really a thing that exists in this game. So I think S tier will be killers that will for sure guarantee DCs at least in half of the matches. While F tier will guarantee, and again, I guess this isn't supposed to be scientific, but F tier will be you never get people DCing in this specific killer's matches, I guess. So I guess that's how I'm gonna be ranking them. S tier being like you're close to like a 90% DC rate, or like half of your survivors will DC in your matches, I guess. While F is like never happens at all, which again doesn't really happen in this game. But yeah, okay. So we're starting off with Trapper. Okay, Trapper I think is kind of a toss up. I want to say that he's lower than like 50%, whatever that means. So I think I'm gonna put him at C tier. This is just how I feel. I feel like survivors won't really DC in a trapper game unless they get completely outplayed, like if they happen to step on a trap that they didn't expect to be there. Or I think the number one reason why survivors might DC or go next on hook might be because they get hooked in basement. And at that point, if the trapper knows how to really utilize basement with traps and things, it's almost like a GG at that point. So I think Trapper is going to be C tier for this. Wraith, I think Wraith has got to be higher than Trapper, honestly. A lot of people really don't like going against Wraith, and honestly, I think that's a skill issue, like legitimately. Don't at me. But Wraith, honestly, but I think a lot of Wraiths also have the what's the word? What the fuck is the word? They're misrepresented as always being toxic. So Wraith, I'm gonna put him probably at, oh god. Honestly, I think he's an A tier DC killer. A tier DC worthy killer. Like, he's not particularly strong, but people really dislike going up against this playstyle. Again, skill issue, but here, that's my opinion. Okay, next we have Hillbilly. Hillbilly, I think Hillbilly. Oh, where'd he go? Okay, he's right over here. Okay, Hillbilly. Okay, so I think a lot of people actually like going against Hillbilly. So I want to put him at B tier. And I think especially since we know that he's gonna get a few nerfs soon, I think people will be less inclined to DC against him as well. So I think he's solidly B tier. Like it kind of is a toss up to DC or how often survivors DC against Billy. I think the times that I usually see people DC against Billy is when people get insta down like within the first 30 seconds of a match. So I think he's going to be B tier. I think most people tend to also stick out his games, so B tier for sure, I think. Okay. Nurse. Okay, Nurse is S tier. Like, frankly, people hate going against Nurse. Like, let's be real. Also, I'm different. I don't really mind going against Nurse. I like going against nurses, even if they're good nurses. Yeah, it can be kind of miserable, but like, I think a nurse has been around in the game for what what she came out what 2016 I'm guessing. I didn't play DBD back then, uh but 2016, 2017 probably, I have no clue. um so people have had like 7-8 years to figure out how to play against her. Sorry. Anyways, off that tangent, she's S tier. People don't like going against her because she's tough to like figure out how to loop or how to extend chases, things like that. And if you get outplayed, people don't really like that. So S tier for sure. Okay. Myers. Actually, I think Myers might either be C tier or D tier. I might even argue that Myers is the one killer that should technically should technically be F tier. I don't know why there's no F tier.
Look,
I
you know
don't
what?
really know if I really want to
I,
take the chance to make a new
we didn't
tier.
say that.
Okay, how do I do this? Add row below. Oh, I can make a new row. Okay. Oh, that's not what I wanted. That's not what I wanted. This is. Ooh, blue. Let's make it blue. Let's be different.
Not like a regular mom. I'm a cool mom.
I'm doing this on the fly because I've never used this thing. I don't think people DC against Myers. Like, honestly, he's not a particularly strong killer. And yes, he does have like infinite tier 3 add-ons. Or sorry, he has one infinite tier 3 add-on or Tombstone, which I think are the number one things that would probably make people DC against him. You know what? Scratch that. I think people might DC if they don't want to give him the thrill of getting a Mori or a Tombstone on him. So I think it's gonna be D tier. Like it's probably gonna be super rare to see people DC against Myers, in my opinion. I think. Again, not based on any scientific evidence or data, and the lighting in my thing is whatever. So whatever. But he's gonna be D tier, I think. Okay, Hag. Okay, Hag. I tentatively want to put her in B tier, but I want to say A tier maybe. Oh, that's a tough one. I'm trying to think back to previous games that I've had with Hag recently. There's one in recent memory that was pretty rough, to be honest. But I don't remember people DCing that match at all. I want to say she's B tier. Like, it's kind of a toss up, kinda. Yeah, people don't really love playing against her. So I kind of want to say that she is probably B tier. Like, a good coordinated team probably won't DC against Hag. Teams that know how to like disarm her traps either by crouching or by like uh, running towards the traps to activate them when she's like carrying a survivor or she's really busy doing something else, like chasing maybe an injured survivor that Hag really wants to get a down on. That's probably a good time to like go around, run disarming traps. Um, so I think she's a B tier. Like coordinated teams won't really DC against her, but less coordinated teams and newer survivors are more likely to DC against her, I think. Um, and I think especially once you get a basement hag, it's again like similar to Trapper GG, but since she is a little, I guess like a little more obnoxious to go up against, she's probably gonna have to be B tier. Okay, Doctor. Doctor is kind of a hard one. Like, there's tons of issues with him, or tons of perceived issues with him. So I think the number one perceived issue with him would probably be that his sound effects can be pretty annoying, honestly. So so I think Doctor has like the most obnoxious like sound effects for a DBD killer. But even with that, I don't think people DC against him. I've seen like a few streamers that will just completely mute the audio for Doctor because it can be obnoxious. It can induce migraines or headaches or nausea, even. So I think that might be the one reason why most people would DC against Doctor. But even then, I think most people will stick out a Doctor game. Um, and I don't particularly think that Doctor games have like really obnoxious gameplay. So I think similar to to Trapper, I think it's kind of a big toss up. I really don't think people will DC against a Doctor, so I'm gonna put him in C tier. Okay, Huntress. Okay, this one's a little juicy. So when I started playing DBD, I don't think I used to see people DC against Huntresses that often, but DC or go next. But I think since her recent buffs of this year, the beginning of 2024, I think people have been less likely to stick out games with Huntress. So I think she's going to be an A tier. I think the other reasons why people DC against her are because um, if she really excels at camping hooks, especially in very wide open areas, and people dislike going against that type of playstyle. So either the survivor on hook will DC because they perceive that they're not going to get saved, which could happen honestly, and she can have some decent anti-loop sometimes, depending on the loop on obviously. Um, but I think people will still DC against her. She has decent like counterplay and stuff, so it's not like she's uncounterplayable. Um, but people just don't like being outplayed. So she's gonna go in A tier. Yeah. Bubba. Okay. Hot take. I don't like going against Bubba's, like honestly. Something about the gameplay or the way chases play out is really, I find it really annoying. I think it's mostly comes down to the fact that, and again, I'm not saying that I DC against Bubba. I'm just saying I don't like the gameplay of being chased by a Bubba. It's not for me. I'll stick out the games, obviously, but again, not for me. Uh, I'm gonna get off my rant of the chases, but um, a lot of people actually like going against Bubba. Like a lot of people like going against Bubba. I'm not one of them. Um, so I think he's gonna be D tier. Like I don't really see a lot of people DCing against Bubba's. Um, and I think the only time that people might really DC against him is when he's camping hooks, which is not really that big of a possibility anymore with the anti-face camp mechanic. Um, he can still kind of proxy camp, um, but besides that, I don't really think people will DC against him. But in those few small situations, I think people will likely DC in like camping situations, especially in endgame. But at that point, it's like, why would a survivor DC at endgame? The match is almost over. Like, just stick it out and get your points. But people will still DC. or any perceived slight. So yeah, he's gonna go in D tier. Freddy. Okay, so Freddy. Do people really see Freddy games? Um, I mean, ever since like Infinite Freddy or Forever Freddy's been gone from the game, I don't think it's that big of an issue. Um, I want to also tentatively put him in D tier, but he might honestly be an F tier killer. F tier DC killer. Like he doesn't particularly excel at getting DCs, I think. Like he's not a strong killer. I mean, again, honestly, I don't think any killer in the list is going to be F tier for sure. Um, I mean, I'm trying to just look at this very quickly, but I really don't think any of these killers are actually F tier potential. Um, maybe, yeah, I don't think so. There's something I can think of for each killer that will make a Survivor DC. But Freddy might be close. Okay, so I think Freddy is honestly going to be I think he's going to be the only F tier DC killer. Like, I don't think people really DC against Freddy. Like, I think most people know that he's a weak killer. His anti loop isn't particularly good. His even with Pallet Freddy, it's not particularly amazing. And I mean, the one thing that might make people DC against him is the fact that he can get oblivious status effect like routinely. But even then, I don't think it's that big of an issue for most survivors. And again, he's not a particularly strong killer in this current meta or in the current state of DBD. So I think honestly, Freddy is going to get the honor of being the first and probably only F tier DC killer. So congratulations, Freddy. Fredward. Okay, next we have Pig. Pig is probably going to be. I want to put her A tier. Yeah, she's going to be A tier for sure. A tier DC worthy killer. There's tons of little mechanics that people don't really like going up against a pig. The hats or bear trap, reverse bear traps. The fact that she can like go in and out of chase to like extend the bear trap timer. I think people really just like going up against players who know how to play pig well and really know how to take advantage of her mechanics and things like that. So I think she's probably going to be A tier. Like if either you'll DC because somehow everything becomes unbearable, or you just DC because you particularly hate going up against the playstyles that she really excels at, like hidden run, uh, like going in and out of chase to like prevent you from doing from getting your bear chop off of your head, things like that. So she's gonna be A tier. Clown. Clown is kind of I kind of want to say that he's probably going to be B tier. He, I think, in my opinion, I think a lot of Survivor players have the perception that Clown players tend to be pretty toxic, uh, meaning they know how to take advantage of, I guess, dirty game mechanics. And by dirty, or I guess I should say efficient killer gameplay, like tunneling and slugging, things like that. I guess he really kind of can excel at tunneling pretty well sometimes, if with the slowdown that he gets with the bottles and things like that. So I want to say that he's probably going to be like B tier, especially if a clown is really good at like figuring out how to use efficient killer gameplay or mechanics. Uh, so I think he's just B tier, honestly. And I think the other thing that might make people DC is just they might find the constant screaming kind of obnoxious. Uh, the other thing that people don't really like against him is they haven't quite figured out uh, how to like loop or how to read palettes to like extend chases and things like that. So B tier, I think. Spirit. Okay, Spirit, I think at one point used to be like S tier, but I think currently, I think she's gonna be A tier. Like, we'll consistently get DCs every now and then, at least, especially if you're a good Spirit player. Um, People hate that. People hate that you're good. People hate that you know how to phase on them. So A tier, I think. Like a good Spirit player is gonna be really oppressive and is gonna be hopefully and is gonna be able to end chases pretty quickly. So I think especially a good Spirit player is going to be really really good at locking in your location. So and I think a lot of people, mm, a good Spirit's going to be able to like lock in your exact location and then hit you and stuff like that. And it can be frustrating for Survivor players to not know how to figure out how to outplay that kind of play style or that kind of killer power. So she's going to be A tier. Legion. Again, similar to Spirit, I think Legion used to be at like S tier from what I've heard. And from around the time that I started playing, which was like 2020, people would kind of routinely DC against Legion. Um, but I think Legion is probably not like a B tier, maybe still an A tier. Like people don't really like going up against Legion, even though he's not a particularly strong killer in chase and mobility and map pressure, things like that. He's not super well, but I think the number one thing that makes people hate and probably DC against legions is the fact that they have to mend and things like that. Especially if you're mending and you pair that with thanatophobia, I think that makes survivors really dislike going up against legions. But like, I mean, can you really blame a legion? That's like one of the best ways to secure some form of slowdown for this killer. So I mean, he's gonna be B tier, I think. Mostly due because of the mending mechanic, and especially if you pair it with things like thanatophobia or expentimento. So he's going to be B tier. Okay, Plague. Plague, I want to say is like a C tier, probably a B tier. Um, I think she's going to be B tier. Like it's somewhat rare to find people DC against Plague, I think, but there's like a few issues that people might have with her. For one, there are people that have that phobia of vomiting and things like that. Besides that, I don't think she really. Hmm. I think the reason why people might want to DC against the plague is because they might have brought med kits or healing perks, and they're not able to utilize those once you figure out that you're in a match with her. So they might DC because of that. Next, Ghostface. Ghostface, I think, has like the honor of being like C tier or D tier. Um, Similar to these other killers, they're not like particular. He's not like particularly strong, uh, so people don't really want to DC against him. Actually, you know what? He's gonna be C tier, not D tier. I think some people really do dislike. I've seen survivors DC against Ghostface when he's able to mark them within like the first 30 seconds to like 60 seconds of a match, and if he's able to then get the down, that really drives people insane and angry. So that's why they might DC. So he's gonna be C tier. I think that's probably the number one reason uh, people might DC against Ghostface. So I think C tier. Like, yeah, I think a C tier. Yeah, I think he's a C tier C tier or DC killer. Demogorgon. Demogorgon. I initially thought that Freddy might be the only person that the only killer that was gonna. I initially thought that Freddy was gonna be the only killer that was gonna get the honor of being F tier DC worthy, but I think Demo might be the second actually. Like I really rarely ever see Demo. Like people love going up against demos and being in chase against the Demogorgon. I personally don't. Uh, Especially if you're going up against a good Demogorgon, it's like it's the drop pallet simulator. He was like the one killer that brought a lot of the player base to DBD, I think, because of Stranger Things. People love the music, people love his design, so I think he's honestly like F tier. So Oni might actually be either A tier or B tier. I want to say that this might be a hot take, but I think Oni deserves to be an A tier or is going to be an A tier because 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 what was I gonna say? Um, what the fuck was I gonna say? I completely forgot what I was gonna say. Give me a second. I need a break. I think my ADHD is in full force. Okay, so I'm back and I think my brain's been a little refreshed. I think I was on Oni. So Oni, hot take. I'm gonna put Oni in A tier. People really seem to dislike going up against Oni, especially if he's able to get two downs very close to in a very short duration. So like either whether like maybe during an unhook situation, like he's able to get two downs pretty much immediately, or when he slugs and tries to build more pressure and snowball in a match, that's when people will likely DC. And since Oni really excels at this kind of a killer gameplay, people hate that. So A tier. Um, yeah, A tier. Also, I think if you pair it with his strongest add-ons like Shattered Hole, what's the other one? Aikido's Crutch. Um, what's the other one? Lion's Fang. Those three in particular, people really dislike going against them. So just because it can feel a little hard to do much, if anything, against a good Oni, especially an Oni that knows how to do 180 flicks. So A tier. Deathslinger. I think Deathslinger might actually be pretty low on the list. Like, there's a few. I think he's gonna be D tier. Like, there's a few things that a Deathslinger might be able to do to like really piss people off. And besides those few things, I think most people tend to like going up against Deathslingers. Again, not a super strong killer, um, not a super strong anti loop, or he can have really good anti loop or zoning ability. But besides that, it can be fun to outplay Deathslinger or to like play around his power, like dodging, moving, mind games, all that fun stuff. So I think he's gonna be D tier. Like it's gonna be kind of unlikely, but if you're a Deathslinger that really utilizes uh, slinging people with like tunneling mechanics, holding people hostage in particular situations with his spear, then that's when people will likely DC. So I think maybe D tier, or sorry, maybe C tier. It's gonna be D tier, honestly. I don't really care. He's gonna be D tier. D tier for Death Slinger.
Duh.
Okay, Pinhead. Pinhead, I think, has a lot of the similar gameplay as like Slinger. Very good at zoning, pretty good anti-loop, not very strong mobility. But if you're a good pyramid head that knows how to utilize his power in really tough situations like unhook scenarios, um, in regular loops, stuff like that, people will likely DC against a pyramid head. So I think he's has a likely higher likelihood of people DCing against him. So I think C tier. Blight. Ah, my beloved, my Blight main. I think it's honestly fair to say that Blight is S tier DC potential. Uh, right up there with Nurse. People, especially if you pair with like double speed add-ons, um, possibly Adrenaline Vial is not as good now, but it can still be oppressive, especially if you do like uh if you try to do a what do you call it? Um what used to be called budget alchemist ring with like shattered I think it's shattered notes and adrenaline vial. So I think he is going to be S tier. Like a lot of people still don't like going up against Blight, especially if you get like a really early hit with like Lethal Pursuer or even without Lethal Pursuer. He has a really high DC potential. I can say so as like a Blight main myself.
If it's hitting in your body, then that's what it's supposed to do, and that's all we have to know.
Um, he he gets DCs pretty often, even if I'm not running particularly strong add-ons or perks. People just don't really like going up against him, but he's really fun. I like going up against Blights. Even it's fun. It's fun to me. So S tier. Okay, Twins, right up there with Blight and Nurse. I think they Twins has really high DC potential. I guess I could also organize these later, but like I think Twins has. I mean, just yesterday I was playing a match of Survivor during Chaos Shuffle, and someone DC'd against the Twins like as soon as we heard or as soon as he heard the what do you call it, the sound cue that Victor has been released. So Twins is still a notoriously a killer, notorious for DCing and people quitting. Uh, very good at camping, very good at slugging, can kind of be good at tunneling. Uh, all things that people really dislike going up against. So S tier, like hands down, no questions asked. S tier. Okay, up next, Trickster. I think Trickster is going to be B tier. People don't really like going up against Trickster because of his. He has pretty decent. He has pretty decent zoning potential and a pretty okay anti loop. Pretty decent, I want to say. Uh, he's really good in really low object palette loops and things like that. And since those kind of exist in a lot of different maps, people don't really like going up against Trickster because of that. It can feel like he can get downs pretty quickly as well, or it can feel like you can't, as a survivor, you can't really do a lot. But hot take, I actually kind of like going up against Tricksters. I think it's kind of fun to try and dodge the blades or try to find loops or utilize loops to prevent him from using his blades. Uh, but yeah, I think by most survivor standards, he's a particularly strong killer that is apparently really annoying to go up against. So B tier. Okay, next, I think Nemesis. I think he's got to be C tier. And I think the number one reason why people might DC against Nemesis is because a lot of Nemesis players still have the the perception of being of being a killer that goes instantly for the tunnel. And I mean, I hate to say it, but like it seems to be kind of true, honestly. Like a lot of nemesis seem to like want to go for the tunnel instantly, even though with the recent buffs, he's in a much better state that doesn't really require you to go out for the tunnel, but people still try to out for the tunnel. And that's probably the one reason why people might not want to play against the nemesis because they're getting tunneled. Um, so he's gonna go in C tier. There's also like a few little quirks of his power, like the zombies roaming around like generators that can be really annoying, especially if the nemesis is pairing it with like a gen regression like ruin. It's just irritating to try and like leave your generator with a decent amount of progress in order to either find ruin or to like shepherd the zombies away from the generators. So C tier. Okay. Pinhead or the Cenobite. So I think Cenobite's going to be A tier. Like lately, it's not happened as much whenever I go up against a Cenobite, but even then, people still don't really like going up against Cenobite, and they have this perception of him being extremely oppressive, which he can be. But I think that usually comes down to poor survivor play, in my opinion. If there's not at least one survivor that's going for the box to try and prevent a chain hunt. So, but anyways, um, I think because of that, he's going to be A tier killer in terms of DCs. Like people still don't really like going up against the power. The power can be a little bit annoying to feel like you're getting slowed down uh, by these random chains, and so A tier, I think. Yeah, yeah. Even with all the recent nerfs that he's gotten over like the year since this release, I think he's still like I don't really mind going up against him. I think it's kind of fun, honestly. But a lot of people don't really like going up against Cenobite. So A tier. Okay, next is artist. Again, like I mentioned for a lot of other killers on this list, uh, if you're a particularly good killer player and you main this particular killer, people will likely DC against you even more. But a good artist player, I think, is like, or just artist in general, is like a toss up. She has a really decent zoning potential, but she's honestly like she's like an M1 killer, honestly, especially against good survivors. But I think she's gonna be. I think she might be B tier DC worthy. People still don't really like going up against artist. She's been in the game what 2 3 years now. Uh, like her gameplay is not particularly difficult to figure out, I think, but with the strong zoning potential, people just hate that. Uh, and the fact that she can like get hits at very long distances, dist- distances, people really don't like that. So I think she's gonna be B tier. Also, I think Artist is the number one killer that I've gotten the most like complaints in endgame chat. I think uh, saying that she requires no skill, no power, easy pay to win. So I think B tier. I think people are still salty about her. So yeah, B tier. Okay, so Onryo. Onryo, I want to initially put her probably in B tier. Uh, there are some like her gameplay can be really annoying sometimes. Although spamming teleport is not as useful now, especially if survivors know what they're doing. I think honestly, her counterplay is not super obvious to most people, so I think that's what pisses them off. Honestly, so might even want to put her in like A tier. But in the games that I've had against an Onryo, I've had pretty decent group of survivors in my team, and they don't really tend to DC, even if the Onryo is trying to go for or condemn stacks. So I think I think she's gonna be B tier. I think most people by now have kind of gotten used to her gameplay or and her counterplay. So I think it's not as irritating now. So, but she still has like a decent possibility of getting DCs and people quitting. So B tier. Dredge. Dredge actually. Dredge might actually be F tier worthy DC. Um, that's not true. D tier. Okay, so I'll put him in D tier because I am a self-proclaimed Dredge main as well, and I don't really see people DC against Dredge super often. There was like one game in recent memory where I happened to get an indoor map, which was Hawkins, and since Hawkins can have a lot of locker placements, although the locker placements can be pretty shit because you have these lockers. I'm gonna get off my tangent. Anyways, you might get people DCing against you if you happen to get an indoor map, like Midwich, especially Hawkins. Not so much RPD, but Larry's is a good one too. Uh, Kinda. So if you happen to get like an indoor map and you happen to get good locker placements and you happen to like outplay people with like a locker, that pisses people off. So I think he's gonna be D tier, but besides that, he's not a really strong killer. He has some anti-loop, or he has a pretty good anti-loop, but you have to be able to zone survivors, which he really kind of lacks the zoning part of his power. So D tier, I want to say. Wesker. I think I think a lot of people actually like going up against Wesker. Like he's not super high, so let me just put him at D tier for now. But let me think about it a little bit. Okay, he's gonna be C tier now that I'm thinking about it. So Wesker has like similar to his other Resident Evil friend Nemesis. Uh, he can excel, or he used to excel really well at like tunneling, but I think a lot of Weskers still have that reputation for going for the tunnel pretty early into the match. So I think that's the number one thing why people might not want to go up against Wesker and DC. Um, but besides that, I think he's got a pretty fun power to go up against and to loop. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think and maybe possibly going up against good Weskers that know how to do his hug tech, um, that can like do that weird little like swivel thingy or like the little like turn, all that fun stuff. Uh, that might get people or survivors to DC. So I think C tier. Okay, Knight. I think Knight now is probably an A tier killer. Like he still excels a lot of the things that piss people off. Like, I mean, he's not super great at camping, but he's really good at like. Okay, I should rephrase that. He's really good at like proxy camping in general, and he's really good at like defending areas of a map. And again, a lot of people don't like going up against the dirty killer gameplay or efficient killer gameplay, which includes a lot of things. But since Knight really excels at like camping or controlling areas of a map, it really pisses people off. And I think on top of that, since you're able to technically like chase two survivors, one with a guard and one with uh, you as the knight, people don't really like going up against that kind of gameplay either. So I think he's gonna be A tier. Yeah, A tier, especially with his buffs. He's in a really good spot now. Skull Merchant. I mean, do I even have to like? Do I even have to like actually explain it? Like, I know she's getting a nerf, and yeah, but like, it, she's got this reputation, sadly. So S tier. Larry. I this might be a hot take, but he's actually like A tier DC worthy. Ever since his buffs from I don't know, like the summer of 2024, people have been DCing against Singularity quite often, and I don't know why. I think people just really are really like lost on his counterplay. Um, so he's gonna be like A tier. I think I honestly think this just comes down to like survivors not knowing how to counterplay against him, but like you really got to take advantage of those EMPs.
Get your fucking ass up and work. It seems like nobody wants to work these days.
That's so true.
You have to surround yourself with people that want to work.
And you got to really be aware of your surroundings, which I mean can be hard for some survivors, and they don't like really. Yeah, I don't know. He's A tier. He's A tier. I've seen a lot of when I've played Singularity myself, or when I play Singularity in solo queue and things like that. He gets a lot of DCs and a lot of people going next on hooks. So A tier. Okay, Xenomorph, Alien. I'm gonna put him in B tier. Like Xenomorph doesn't have like, or Xenomorph has like pretty good anti-loop, really good at anti-loop. But survivors don't really like going up against that, and Xenomorph has a power that really needs survivors to place turrets and things like that, and they don't really want to have side objectives like that sometimes, which is anyways. And I think a lot of survivors don't really want to do side objectives of like having to place down turrets and things like that, but I think that can be fun. So, but anyways, this is not about me. This is about other survivors. I think it's mostly the strong anti-loop power that Xenomorph has that makes people DC. So I think B tier. I think B tier. Yeah, just B tier. Chucky. Okay, so I really don't like going up against Chucky. Like, I really don't. There's like quite a few things that I think he needs some tweaks on his power just to make him a little more bearable. He's a very strong killer, and but I don't really see a lot of people DCing against him. So I think he's either going to be A tier or B tier.
Fuck, it's hot as fuck in here.
But I do see people going next on him. So I think Chucky's going to be A tier. Yeah, A tier. You'll probably have like a good likelihood of people DCing against you. I mean, strong power, can go undetectable, can be really good at hit and run, and I agree with Survivor Remains on this one. Rat poison. Rat poison is such a strong add-on. It's like the way I compare it in my head is if you gave Spirit the ability to see survivor auras while she's in phase. It's not quite the same, but I think it's pretty similar, honestly. If you gave Spirit the ability to see survivors during phase or just their auras, I think rat poison is that strong. Yeah, so A tier. Unknown. Honestly, Unknown I think is in like a really good balance spot. I think he needs a few tweaks to his power to make him a little bit stronger, not like crazy strong, just tiny tweaks. But I don't really think I see survivors DC against Unknown. Like in general, I also want to consider myself an Unknown main, or I'm trying to get there. But I don't really see survivors DCing against Unknown. So I think even when I play Survivor, I don't see people DCing against Unknown. He's pretty fun in my opinion. D tier. Yeah, D tier. Vecna. I think Vecna's honestly pretty high. Probably like A tier or B tier. I want to say that I'm going to put him in B tier for now. I think the number one thing that people really hate against Vecna is the mage hand, obviously. So I think Mage Hand for sure is probably the number one thing that's gonna piss people off to play against the Lich. So I think he's either A tier or B tier. But I mean, good survivors know how to utilize or how to counterplay the Mage Hand and things like that. So but I mean, not every survivor is a good survivor too. So by most DVD survivor players, I think he's going to be A tier DC worthy. Mage Hand pisses people off. So yeah. Okay. And now the last killer that's been added to DBD, Dracula, the Dark Lord. Very strong anti-loop. Very strong anti-loop, very strong powers, especially with his buffs and recent tweaks. So I think either B tier, maybe A tier. I I think he's B tier currently, but I foresee if his power stays where it's at right now, and people start to get really good at using his power, killers start to get really good at using his power, I think we're gonna see more survivors decing and going next against a Dracula. Again, he's got a lot of good things going for him. He's got a lot of mobility, a lot of a very strong anti-loop power and zoning power. Um, and he's got just like a really good chase power. Like the wolf is pretty good. Uh, the hellfire is pretty good. If not, then it's probably good for zoning.
Talented, brilliant, incredible, amazing, show-stopping, spectacular, never the same, totally unique, completely not ever been done before, unafraid to reference or not reference.
So yeah, I think he's B tier, but I foresee that people are gonna start going next against the Dark Lord pretty soon, or in the next month or two, maybe. But yeah, I think that's gonna be my list. If I had to really organize this a bit more, how would I organize this? Just to like make it flow from like S tier plus S plus S plus minus plus or S plus S minus and yada yada yada. I think I would probably do it like, let's see, you can go there, you can go there. I think you can go there. I'm gonna put them together because they're family. You can go. I think you can go up here. Honestly, pig can go down here. You can go down here. Hillbilly. Who has the highest probability? I think you. You're pretty high though. You can go kind of lower. Xeno. Probably here. Clown can go down. Legion can go down. Plague can go down here. I think this is. Yeah, it's pretty good. I think. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's good for a B tier. C tier. I think you're gonna go all the way down there. Ghostface can go down here. Pyramid Head can kind of be higher up than Trapper, I think. I think Nemesis and Wesker can go up higher. Especially Nemesis. Trapper can go down here. Myers, I think you have a very low DC rate. So do you. You're probably higher. Probably lower. Probably lower. And yeah, I think that's gonna be the tier list. But yeah. So I think that's gonna be it for this video. Obviously, not super serious, just kind of like whatever. But yeah, I put out videos probably like once a week currently. Um, Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Uh, Leave a comment, whatever you think about this tier list. If you think I'm wrong, if you think someone should be higher, anything, hit the like button if you like it, or don't if you don't. Hit the dislike button if you don't like it, whatever. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.